council meeting for Tuesday, November 17th. Let's rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Of the roll call.
Councillor Olson.
Here.
Bridge.
Here.
Bender.
Here.
Mertzig.
Here.
Anderson. Hendry.
Here.
Finsland.
Here.
Herrick.
Here.
McKenzie.
Here.
Dahlbeck.
Here.
Youth Councillor Nowicki.
Here.
Emmert. And Sather.
Here.
We have no proclamations or commendations. I'll call for the approval of the minutes. Motion by Councillor Dahlbeck, second by Councillor Bender. Any discussion? Does this seem loud?
Yes.
Yeah, it does, but that's all right.
Okay, maybe I'll move back. How's this? Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The minutes are approved.
The consent agenda, I handed out an addition. Councillor Olson is requesting a traffic signal warrant study for North 58th Street and Tower to be referred to Public Works Committee.
Thank you. And motion by Councillor Finland, second by, I heard 4 voices. Mr. McKenzie. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Consent agenda is adopted.
7.1 has been withdrawn.
Did I blow it, or did we pass on 614 already?
Yeah, nobody separated it.
No. The one matter I need to point out to the council under 6.14, and I hope I'm looking at the right agenda, it was the Public Safety Committee's recommendation for the formation of a fact-finding committee. That is the part of that motion that addresses the recommendation to the council to form the fact-finding committee is in itself appropriate. The specific designation of the membership is not. So the membership will be appointed by the mayor with your final approval. An appropriate motion to close the chapter on 6.14 would be to form the fact-finding committee itself and then designate or fix a number of members.
Okay, motion by Councillor Dahlbeck to set the number of members. Okay, at what?
Yeah. What do you want, guys?
8, okay. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Mertzig. Motion and second to set the fact-finding committee at 8. Any discussion? Let's see, I got Mr. Emmert's head in your way, Mr. Anderson. That's not your fault. Neither of your faults. Mr. Anderson.
Well, this sound system's rather annoying tonight. It's just another one of the things in this particular room that has come to be annoying. I notice where all of the monitors are gone now.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means exactly.
They're coming.
I think that, in forming this committee, I think I'd like to make sure that it's understood that it is mostly the will of the council that certain groups are represented on that particular committee. I guess is more advisory to the mayor than anything else. But I think it's quite clear that both committees had wanted to see representation from the fire department, from finance, someone from the county board, and so I would hope that in the interest of examining this issue closely and as diligently as we can, that you follow those recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll take that into consideration. Any other comments? Mr. Olson.
When we do get this committee formed, and it'll be the mayor's appointment with our blessing, per se, where is that going to take place? At the council level?
Yeah, so I'll submit the names to you, and you'll either approve them or disapprove them.
Thank you.
Yep, that'll be your sole discretion. Any more questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ad hoc or special committee is set at 8.
Okay, item 7.1 has been withdrawn. Item 10.1 is a resolution calling for the prepayment and redemption of the outstanding $3,240,000 general obligation corporate purpose refunding bond, Series 1, 1998B, and the outstanding $3,900,000 general obligation promissory note, Series 2002A.
Motion by Councillor Dalbeck, second by Councillor Bender, and Councillor Finland first.
No, I
You
think
beat Mr.
Henry
Henry.
first.
Okay, Mr. Henry.
I just had a question, if I could have it answered. In reading the information further into the packet that I've got, I read a paragraph that said that the reason we're doing it is, the reason the council resolution said that, stated that the council feels that it's good for the council to approve it. I guess if we approve it, that's what we're approving. It's like a resolution. I just kind of wondered if you could be a little more specific. Why is it good for us to do this? Do we have extra money that, or are we able to get a better interest rate or something?
Well, this is all a part of the 12-year debt reduction plan that the council approved a few years ago. And so when you said that you want to take the oil pipeline terminal tax revenue and split it to have 2/3 of it go to pay down our debt, with, of course, the ultimate goal of not having to pay interest costs in the future, and then have the other portion of that go to economic development. This is just one piece of that plan. And so annually, what we do is we determine which of our debt issues that we want to pay off in advance, and then we bring them forward to the council, just so you're aware of which ones that we're
Are we
doing.
floating new debt issues as we're ending these, or not?
We have not been, well, no, for our capital improvement program, we knew that we needed a couple more cycles to issue more debt because we don't have those kind of funds on hand where we can formulate our capital improvement program without borrowing money. But it's anticipated that the year 2014 will be the last year that we need to issue debt for our CIP.
Okay, now why would we phase these out and then issue debt later?
Because by the time we get to both the year 2011, we go every 3 years for our capital improvement program, and that is funded approximately 30% by debt. But we do not have the cash on hand when it comes to the year 2011. If we have a CIP that runs roughly $10 million, we don't have those funds on hand. We have to issue debt to be able to complete those projects. But by the time that we get, let's go to 2014, and if we issue another, let's say, $4 million of debt, by that time, each year, we're paying down our debt, and the goal is that by, I would say, the CIP of the year 2017, we won't have to issue any debt after that.
Okay, so we're looking at hopefully a long-term trend where we're reducing it over a period of time.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
there's some bounces in the short
Correct.
term.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's why we
Yeah.
called it the 12-year plan. It does take until, I think it was the year 2019 before we would see this plan come to fruition. But our goal at that time is that we'll be in a position where it's more pay-as-you-go is what they call when you have cash on hand and you don't have to issue debt anymore. And then the whole goal of this is that we would be saving, instead of paying $800,000 or $900,000 in interest costs every year, we can take that money and put it into something other than just paying interest.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Appreciate the questions. And Mr. Finland, you've, any more questions? Those are good questions. Thank you. I think that helps us all understand the direction we're going and how this program works out. Some of the older counselors, like Councilor Anderson, Councilor Finland, were very much involved in this whole process, writing the, something I know of no council in the entire state that's taking on this kind of reduction of debt that we initiated. So we're well on our way, and it's a good news. Seeing no more comments, Councilor Anderson.
Well, I hope we can stay on this track, but I've said all along, I don't trust the state. And, they gave us this money back, but they could very easily come and say we're taking it again, which would force us into a very costly lawsuit, which we probably would win.
Correct.
But I hope they don't.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson. He's lived with this terminal tax for many, many years. So, seeing no more comments, all in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. 10-1 passes.
10.2 is a resolution introduced by the Public Works Department dedicating the following streets open for public use and travel: Beacon Knoll Development, including Beacon Lane, Beacon Place, and Overlook Lane.
Motion by Councilor McKenzie, seconded by Councilor Olson. These are Mr. McKenzie's district, and this is something the residents have wanted for a long time. Any other comments? All in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. 10-2 passes.
10.3 is a resolution appropriating necessary funds for the operation of the general city government and the administration of the City of Superior for the year 2010, and authorizing and directing a tax levy of $11,002,000 to be spread on the 2009 tax roll.
Motion by Councilor Anderson, seconded by Councilor Delbeck. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. 10-3 passes.
10.4 is a resolution introduced by Councilors Anderson, Bender, and Olson supporting the Northern Lights High-Speed Rail Line Project Initiative and Study.
Motion by Councilor Bender, seconded by Councilor Anderson. Any discussion? Councilor Anderson.
Well, I'd just like to point out that this project is still moving along. And as was pointed out in the resolution, there is a passenger rail initiative that's been initiated by the federal government, and also the TARP, or the all these different.
ARA.
Yeah, there we go. That's the one, American Reconstruction and Recovery Act. There will be presentations by other bodies, and there will be presentations of this a new group that's doing studies of this within the next month or so. And this is really irritating the way this sound is.
Maybe
you okay?
don't need it in.
Yeah, that's probably true. What we're hoping is that this project isn't abandoned, and that we do end up with passenger rail service and more towards the high-speed variety of 110 miles an hour, at least as far as Superior. It's still going to be quite expensive to get all the way to Duluth. We're not opposed to it going to Duluth, but we would like to see it at least get as far as Superior within the next several years, and we can work on the other connection as it comes.
Mr. McKenzie.
Yeah, I support this resolution, too. I guess I got a question for Councilor Anderson. When you do discuss this about going from here to the cities and the cost, are you including the equipment such as ribbon rail, which without the ribbon rail, we really don't have a high-speed train?
Any of the numbers used in there were not calculated by us. They're calculated by the study group. So, yeah, the infrastructure cost is, until they do it, who knows what it is going to be that day.
Yeah, because I think I asked somebody one time, and they felt that they really weren't going to look into putting in all new rail, and it just seemed like it didn't make sense unless they do include all new bedding and rail. And again, I stress the ribbon rail, because that's what creates the high-speed train, or the safety for the high-speed train. You're talking 110 miles an hour, so.
So I understand it could possibly be a totally new line.
Yeah, I would think so. Thanks.
Good comments. Seeing no more, all in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. 10.4 is adopted.
10.5 is a resolution authorizing the transfer of land located on North 3rd Street and Tower Avenue to the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Superior.
Motion by Councilor Dahlbeck. Seconded by Mr. Bridge. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. 10.5 passes.
11.1 is the ordinance introduced by the Community Service Officer amending City Code Chapter 22, Animals.
We need a motion? Motion by Councilor Bender, seconded by? Mr. Bridge, B&B. Any discussion? Seeing one? Mr. Finsley.
Still want to know why we took off the cats. And I think we have someone here to answer the question this time.
And I think that was the last question.
If you look at, I don't know if everybody has a copy of the ordinances that are proposed. So under animals, if you look under definition, it includes all mammals, birds, amphibians, reptiles. And so when you go on to page, chapter 22-3, when you say animals, proper care and control of their animals to prevent them from becoming a public nuisance, that would include all animals there. Dogs, cats, ferrets. I've had chickens. I've even had cow complaints this year. So by just including animals, we're trying to be all-inclusive there. And so we're trying to be more inclusive. The cat line was just deleted because it seemed redundant.
But there was a specific fine for unleashed or uncontrolled cat, and now there is no specific fine for that?
There's a fine for animals running at loose, and it's $169.
So it's not $25 fine anymore?
I'm sorry?
It's not the $25
No.
fine, then a person that lets a cat run loose is going to be fined $125?
$169 is for all animals.
Doesn't that seem excessive for a cat?
Well, that's a discretion item for myself as well. I don't think I've ever cited somebody more. It's an impound fee. So they paid the $25 to get the cat out of impound.
All right.
I think there's a section here too, isn't there, Chris, on page 2? Were you referring to page 2?
Page 3 was proper control.
Where it says, under restraint means an animal controlled by fence, leash, its owner's command within the confines of the owner's property.
Under probably
I think
definitions?
that, yeah, I think that, yeah.
Yep.
And then it goes on B and C, talking again about leash laws and the owner's property. So that covers all.
Under restraint, right. The
Right.
definitions we put in there to support the other language throughout the revisions, I guess. A lot of what we did here was addressing dangerous and potentially dangerous animals because we didn't have a mechanism to control these biting animals. So that was a big push on our part, was that and expanding on the cruelty statute. The proper control is, we just kind of got a little more specific. That's probably where I write most of my citations. But we thought it was very important in a public safety aspect to be controlling these biting animals. So,
Thank you.2Mr. Anderson.
Just for those of you who don't think that cats can be a nuisance, I was walking my dog one night, and we had a cat back us up for 2 blocks. It just kept coming at it and coming at us and coming at us, and I'm with my dog trying to hold him back. So, that was quite unnerving, and this was one of those Egyptian cats about this big. So they should be on leashes also. They're very destructive to the bird population, songbirds, and those sorts of things. So.
You had an attack cat?
Surprised the heck out of me, too, Mayor. I've never seen a cat do that before.
You do own a service revolver,
Well,
correct?
yeah, but I wasn't going to shoot a cat out in the city.
Thank you. Seeing no more comments, all in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. 11.1 passes. There is no business by public. Motion to adjourn. Second.
And I think everybody's here from 20 minutes ago, so we'll skip the roll.
Item 1, the only item is Deb Clausen with the Douglas County Health and Human Service. She's a deputy director with a presentation updating the status of H1N1.
Could I ask that you sit down here so you could get a better sense of what we're going to show on the PowerPoint slides? Absolutely. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to give you an update on our status of what we call the national emergency and our local emergency of the influenza A H1N1 outbreak. That little box in the upper corner there is the actual organism, in case any of you were interested. In color, it looks rather nasty. My name is Deb Claassen, and I'm the health officer for Douglas County in the Department of Health and Human Services. I've been in this role for almost 5 years, and I oversee public health nursing, environmental health, the lab, environmental health lab, and then also, most recently, the Aging and Disability Resource Center, providing the administrative overview. Whoa. Okay, so what is influenza? We have many different types and subtypes of flu viruses, and you'll very often hear them referred to as A, B, and C. The H1N1 is a type of A influenza, and its subtype is very novel and new to the United States. Every year when we get our seasonal flu shots, we have 3 different viruses from viruses that have been circulating over the last couple of years. Next year we anticipate that the H1N1 virus will be in the seasonal influenza shot if it doesn't mutate between now and the time that we are encountering seasonal influenza in 2010-2011. So H1N1 is a type A influenza. If you've gone in and had lab work done and you're told that you have type A influenza, it doesn't necessarily mean it's H1N1. It has to be subtyped. And the only place that subtyping takes place is the Wisconsin State Laboratory of Hygiene, Minnesota Department Laboratory of Hygiene. We don't have the capabilities locally to do the biological subtyping. And that's why when people are hospitalized or they're told by their doctors, I think you have H1N1, because in the initial test they find influenza A, they can't really say absolutely confirmed until they get the subtyping back, which could take anywhere from 4 to 7 days. And our state laboratories of hygiene right now do not have capacity to turn that lab testing around as quickly as we would like that to be. So they change very quickly. They're unpredictable, and I guess one of my favorite sayings is, we don't know what we don't know about H1N1. Did we think we'd have the second wave starting in the fall? No. We thought maybe more towards the winter. Will we have a third wave? You bet. And we're all speculating in the public health field as to when that third wave will hit. So for seasonal influenza, we don't see an outbreak in our neck of the woods until November through April. And generally, it's in March or early April. The CDC this year said, get all the seasonal influenza inoculations done before we start inoculating with H1N1, simply because they wanted the manufacturers to get done processing seasonal before H1N1. And lo and behold, they found out the manufacturers could not grow H1N1 quickly. The egg medium that grows all of our viruses in our influenza shots is not working. It's not the greatest petri dish for this particular virus. So that slowed the manufacturers down. CDC said to manufacturers, put seasonal on hold, don't even package, don't worry about sending, really try to ramp up on H1N1. And we are in a real safe zone at this point, because normally we try not to vaccinate people with seasonal until November, end of November, early December. We are still waiting for 45% of our vaccine order from the manufacturer, as are hospitals, clinics, and other public health agencies for the seasonal influenza vaccine. So who's affected most? And this is really a great table to show you probably what you've heard and seen on TV over and over again. On the top bar for seasonal, it breaks down by age group, which age groups are really at more risk for contracting seasonal influenza, in comparison to the H1N1 on the bottom part of the graph there. And as you can see, for seasonal, our population 65 65 and over are at highest risk for contracting seasonal influenza and any possible ill effects from having the influenza. They're at higher risk for the more ill outcomes. In comparison to ages 5 through 9, that seem to be, and 10 through 17, that seem to be at the lowest risk for seasonal. In comparison now to H1N1, we find that through the first and second waves, the younger ages truly are more at risk. And there's a lot of speculation that's going on about that. I haven't seen too much in terms of scientific proof. But what we hear from epidemiologists and from the CDC is that children, very young children, haven't been around long enough to be exposed to a lot of different viruses. So they seem to be prey for the H1N1. Now, as of today, we have what we call very widespread H1N1 activity, not just here in Superior, but throughout the state and throughout Minnesota and our surrounding states. So we are going to see higher percentages of adults, young adults, middle-aged adults, later adults, contracting and having more of the ill outcomes from H1N1. As of this date, I have not received, as health officer for Douglas County, any confirmation on an H1N1 related death for Douglas County. Yes. Died out in California? Oh, I hadn't heard that. The states are mandated all around us, Minnesota, Michigan. If people were to go to Michigan and be hospitalized and they're a Wisconsin resident, the local health officer must be made aware of that within 72 hours on a confirmed death related to a novel influenza like H1N1. Now, I most recently heard today that Bayfield County has an H1N1 confirmed death, and that was the first for their county, and not a lot of information is out on that at this point. Does that mean we don't have people in Douglas County hospitalized? Absolutely not. And hospitals are mandated to report to the health officer, to the public health agency, people who are hospitalized with H1N1-like symptoms. And we have access to their medical records, and we have to do what we call investigation and then surveillance work to see where people may have been exposed. But it is very widespread. And one of the reasons the CDC has mandated that states investigate all hospitalizations related to H1N1 is these are the more severe cases. People that are getting very ill. And Stan is one of our public health nursing students who's also employed in a hospital in Duluth, works in the ICU. And those ventilators are going 150% of the time. Because the people who are ending up in the hospital with underlying health conditions like asthma, COPD, heart disease, kidney disease, are not able to manage their diseases once the H1N1 virus pulls their resistance down. So again, we get those reports from both hospitals in Duluth. Greater majority of our constituents in Douglas County here will go for one of the tertiary hospitals with that level of illness. Come January, February, March, it's going to be really hard to differentiate. Are we dealing with H1N1 or seasonal? Because the symptoms are similar. You start off with a fever, generally over 100 degrees. People complain of a sore throat. They start coughing, maybe a dry cough, stuffy nose, body aches, chills, fatigue. And some people actually get effects in their GI tract, the diarrhea, the vomiting. And again, those are the same symptoms that people complain of when they contract seasonal influenza. So again, it's going to be difficult come January should we have a combination of both viruses presenting. We have what we call confirmatory testing. I did mention this to you earlier. The only people right now that are having the testing done, I would say greater than 99% of the physicians who are treating ill people will not even test you if you tend to have a very good health history and you don't have a lot of underlying health problems. So if your physician feels that you're at risk of severe disease from the H1N1, you will have the testing done. We're not intending, like I said earlier, to test everyone. We just don't have the resources to do it. And fortunately, for the greater majority of us, the illness has been rather mild. Treatment, as far as using Tamiflu and Relenza, is mainly used for treatment and not so much prophylaxis. There just is not enough of the medications to go around because the disease is so widespread. In the ILI, I'm sure you've seen that acronym. It's influenza-like illness symptoms, and it's referred to very often on TV and in the newspapers and in public health communications. So what are the interventions for H1N1? We use the terminology community mitigation and non-pharmaceutical interventions. That's probably the more predominant intervention that is happening not just in Douglas County. Some other terms are social distancing. Obviously, vaccinations, our antiviral medications, and then home care, self-care. Many directions on the web, on CDC's site for individuals to go to and to help sort out, do I think I have it? Must be mild. Here's what I do. Make it through the 7 days. Increase fluids. Get plenty of rest. But if you're having the shortness of breath, tightness, and feeling extreme lethargy, you really need to call your physician. I'm going to go back to community mitigation and talk a little bit about school closing. That's a good example of non-pharmaceutical intervention for H1N1. Yes?
Yeah, if you get an opportunity to get the shot and then you've got it, how long is it effective for? Do you know?
The question was, when you get the shot, how long is it effective? The good news about this shot is it has what we call a strong viral load. Even though it takes a long time to grow in the eggs, it produces a very high level of antibodies that come very quickly, within 2 weeks. In comparison to seasonal, that may take anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks to develop a fairly sound antibody. We haven't immunized people with H1N1 before, so we're really not prepared to say how long will that protection last.
Regular flu shot, doesn't that have a limited length of time during which it's effective?
The regular flu shot, limited amount of time. We had clarification from the CDC, especially when we were trying to vaccinate people early on, and there was a concern, are people going to have immunities into the actual flu season? And the answer was yes. So it's not just 2 months, 3 months. If you get your seasonal shot, seasonal influenza shot, you get it in December, it should last you all the way through June, July, with a strong viral antibody reaction. One of the other questions someone asked me, yes, Esther?
Well, I was just going to say, are you going to finish up on the seasonal?
As soon as we get our 700 doses, we will be out with the clinics that we had to cancel because we didn't have them.
Because I've been telling them to go to their doctors, but we have the homebound, so I'm, anxious for them to get.
Absolutely. Actually, what would be helpful for us is to have them call and get their name on the list, so that when we do get it, we can get a nurse out there to go around and give them their shots. Physicians get a little of the vaccine and it's gone before you know it. So one thing I was going to mention about the H1N1, if you've had respiratory symptoms in the last few weeks where you had a fever, maybe a cough, sore throat, you more than likely did have H1N1. But the goal is for everyone to still be immunized with a vaccination unless you had a laboratory-confirmed test. We don't want a chance you're not having a strong antibody response should you be re-exposed. And I think someone here asked me, can you get it again? Yes, you can, depending on the viral load. Yes, Ed?
Well, it's a little confusing because there was an article in the paper this morning that suggested that most people who had their symptoms of late more than likely had a cold and did not have H1N1. But you know, as you say, it's pretty hard to determine whether it is in fact that or not because of the expense in testing. And then the other thing with the seasonal flu shot, isn't it true the problem with the flu virus is that it mutates and changes, so that you have you may have immunity to one version of flu this year, but that doesn't mean that that's going to be next year's flu virus.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have to get that vaccinated every year.
That's right. And very good point that there are other viruses going around. You'll hear about bronchitis or some strep throat, but truly the H1N1, you're going to know if you have it. You're going to have the high fever. It's rare that a person not have a high fever with that. As far as vaccinations, a lot of information being pumped out. Our role in public health is really a spoke in a wheel that has many, or the hub in a wheel that has many, many spokes, keeping our healthcare providers informed on what the latest guidance is for the diagnosing, the treating, how you're going to use vaccines. It would be wonderful if we had one manufacturer in the U.S., because every manufacturer is creating a product that's for different age ranges. So when we go out, and we have a mass clinic coming up this Thursday night for what we call our targeted populations of persons that are more at risk for severe disease, we have to take 2 to 3 different vaccines with us and make sure that we give the right age to the right age, or the right vaccine to the right age. Our goal would have been to have vaccine for 6 months and on. Children under 6 months are not vaccinated, but we're getting vaccine 5 through 18, vaccines 18 through 64. I mean, it's become a little bit of a nightmare for public health, and the guidance keeps changing in terms of who meets the criteria for getting their shot. Antiviral medication is important for you to know, so you can have a chat with neighbors and constituents. We're not public health is not a medical clinic. We do not diagnose. We do not prescribe. But we actually do have what we call warehousing. And we have a supply of antiviral medication should Lake Superior Community Health Center, should the hospital, Mariner Clinic, SMDC Clinic run out of and need several doses or regimes of antiviral. So we have a cache that we keep right in the health department and are able to transfer that when we hear from our partners that they've run out of their medication and it'll take a few days to get. Not everyone needs to have free antivirals. People that are insured are often sent to the pharmacies, but we have a good number of uninsured or underinsured people living in our jurisdiction that shouldn't pass by the chance of having an antiviral the first 1 to 3 days of infection should they need it. And so we want to make sure we keep enough medication in our community to do that. When we first started off, what I thought, isn't this wonderful? We're going to be able to go in all the schools, get all the kids taken care of, because that would be the biggest impact that public health could make. Children were the ones that were showing illness early on in the first wave. Because the production of the vaccine started to slow down, we then got what we called initial target groups that the CDC said, we want you to focus on. We waited and waited and waited for the vaccine. And when it finally came, we were then able to focus in on where we thought we could make the biggest impact with public health. Encouraging pregnant women to see their physicians if they had the vaccine. Reason being, they have a continuum of information in their medical record. The doctor knows them better than we do. Healthcare and emergency services personnel, hospitals and clinics were able to order their vaccine to immunize their own employees, but public health actually took on all the small operations, healthcare clinic, the WIC dietitians, the Human Development Center, because they have nurses there. And then we went out on 3 mass clinics for emergency volunteer workers that actually had direct hands-on responsibilities for ill persons. We managed with our partners in the community, the clinics, the hospital, to get pretty much everyone done in that category. You probably all know of families who have children 6 months of age and under. All family members or caregivers for children 6 months and under right now can and should be immunized. And then people aged 25 through 64 who had health conditions associated with higher risk medical conditions, that was early on. But when the government realized that the flow of the vaccine was not coming as quickly and we were having problems getting enough vaccine for children and healthcare workers, they put that one on the back burner. And of course, everyone here is 25 through 40, right?
Yeah.
So the subset, pregnant women, healthcare emergency workers, children 6 months through 4 years, people who lived with children under the age of 6 months, 5 through 18 having underlying health conditions. And boy, if that isn't a challenge to try to find those kids. We have 16 schools in the county, and working through the schools to see if they could identify those children who may not get to their physicians for the immunizations. Tomorrow our nurses complete what we call the mop-up. And they go in different directions, load up the van, the vaccine, everything they need, and we're going through the schools to get children immunized that have the underlying health conditions. And as of tomorrow, 19 through 64 that have health conditions associated with the higher risk of medical complications will be eligible for these vaccinations. Yep.
Well, on those guidelines, there was at one time between 2 words there, instead of emergency services personnel, it said emergency medical services personnel. Apparently that word has been removed from the guidelines. I sent an email to the CDC asking about that because it seemed to be written so as to eliminate many of the first responders that are out there, which includes police officers who were not allowed to get vaccinations in this round. And so they never know when they might have direct patient care with blood and all kinds of things going on. So they should have been in the first line. And for most vaccinations, police, fire, and emergency service workers are in the first line because they're the ones that are going to have to be there all the time. And so I guess I'm lobbying a little bit of a protest because some of us did try to get it, but were denied because we didn't fit the...
And I can appreciate that, Ed. Did you hear back from the CDC?
I did.
And?
And they were going to look at that.
Okay.
But their website said, well, it'll be, a few days before we get back. They did get back right away.
Okay. It's been very, very difficult for us because we're programmed in public health to take care of what we call the infrastructure of our communities, including law enforcement, fire, elected officials, so we can keep businesses going, utilities. And we were programmed because of anthrax and our IPS, the interim pharmaceutical supply, where the police would be one of the very first groups to get it. So it was really difficult for us. We lobbied likewise. The firefighters did get it because they have that certification EMT, and I believe there is one deputy sheriff that is a certified EMT.
Several of us
But there was also, there's first responder certification that all law enforcement officers, our officers are many times the first people on the scene and fixing the roof. Whereas in the city, you have fire departments first, but in the county, yes, the volunteer fire departments are, but many times it's the deputies.
Sure, and I do appreciate that. Now that we have the adult age group opened up, if you have heart, lung, COPD, any blood dyscrasias, autoimmune problems, you do qualify. Yes?
I was sure diabetes fit in there.
Diabetes fits in there. Actually, diabetes is really one of the more higher risk diseases. You don't want to have to try to keep the body stabilized and then also fight H1N1. Diabetes is major.
Where would a person get one of those shots that are starting to get offered tomorrow?
Thursday night at United Presbyterian Church from 3 to 7. And we actually did send out to media to get as much information as we could. We have 2,000 doses. And I know that Thursday night we won't use up all 2,000. I wish we could. I mean, I wish we did have that type of response. But you will be able to get that. Yes.
But that's still for 64 and under.
64 and under. The catch here, too, is, what I'm finding is that some of the older people that are over 60 or 65 and over are volunteering. So they volunteer in a clinic, and they also get immunized. So that might be something we need to talk about. No. And this is a federal asset. It comes from the Strategic National Stockpile, so there is no charge for the vaccine. Through public health, there's no charge for the administration of the vaccine. If you go to medical clinics, they have the right to charge an administrative fee. All insurances in the United States signed a pact that said, we will reimburse healthcare providers for that administrative fee. Fortunately, in public health, yes?
Some of the questions that I've heard are safety concerns of the vaccination, like the Guillain-Barré, and then I've also heard, or been asked actually, there's mercury in the shots to preserve the virus. And people are really concerned. You get a seasonal flu shot, you get your dose of mercury for the year. I guess you're allowed a certain percentage of mercury, and now we're getting additional immunizations with more mercury. I'm all for immunization. I'm in the Army. My shot record is like...
Sure.
So
yeah. Scientifically, there is no proof that thimerosal, mercury, which is a preservative, causes ill effects. There's nothing scientific that the CDC... No, the minuscule amount of mercury that's used as a preservative in vaccinations, very different from the amount you eat in fish. Fish has significantly more than that.
I think people need to hear that. That's why I asked, because I think it's important for people to understand that.
That's a real good point, and we really need to have additional ideas on how do you get that information out. We do see it on CNN. We do see it, on some of the local. We will put articles into the paper, maybe handouts at the actual clinics. But just as a point of clarification, because there are the population that choose to have vaccines that are mercury-free, we do always get a smaller amount of vaccination without mercury. And it's mainly parents with little children that are worried about that.
What about the Guillain-Barré?
Guillain-Barré, again, this is hearsay. And there was an article in the paper the other day, the young man that had gotten a shot and immediately had this neuromuscular effect, which was diagnosed as Guillain-Barré. And in the next sentence down, it said, and the physician said, I will make a full recovery. It is, it is a possibility, but it's so remote. And what I did also hear when we were first dealing with the questions of safety and efficacy of the vaccine was the people who, early in the first wave, early on, that developed Guillain-Barré were people who contracted H1N1 and did not have a shot. So there's a lot of speculation out there at this point, and again, it's part of our role to try to keep educating on the questions you're asking.
Well, didn't we, in
That was different. That's a good question. That was live virus. Live. And it was manufactured differently than what we have with the H1N1 vaccine. The manufacturing process for H1N1 is the very same as for seasonal, and it's a deadened vaccine. The nasal does have a certain amount of live to its makeup, and there's a good number of classifications of population that shouldn't be taking the live, that have underlying health conditions.
Isn't that asinine? Shouldn't be taking that line?
Absolutely right. And pregnant women, you know, you don't want to risk that.
I have actually two questions. The safety concerns are the big one, but then the other question that everybody asks is simple: when are we going to be able to get it? I mean, everybody, because the seasonal food, you could go in food clinics and get it anytime.
Well, seasonal,
Well, prior to this year,
yeah.
But you know, you could go into Walgreens and pay $20 and get it. And the question is, when is it going to be available to that extent?
What I'm hearing, and again, this is tentative, would be in December, more towards the end of December, which unfortunately happens around the holidays. Not to say, though, that we wouldn't be offering those mass clinics. But your medical clinics will be receiving vaccine in the state of Wisconsin at the same time that the Public Health Agency does. When our state gets their allotment, half goes to private, half goes to government. Again, best guess, December. I just had a survey today from the state asking where we felt we were in our jurisdiction with overall immunizations for these targeted populations, and I don't believe we're complete or near complete. Think of all the kids that are in daycare facilities that aren't in schools. We sent out letters to 82 licensed daycare facilities, making them aware of our 2 immunization clinics, one this Thursday night, and another one is next Monday night in Poplar at the Covenant Church, and from 3 to 7 o'clock. Okay, this next slide here just gives you an overview of what we've been doing. We're in what we call a semi-COOP, a semi-continuity of operations plan. Public health in Douglas County is very small. You have 4 public health nurses, and we have this population of 45,000 people. So what we have planned over time in our preparedness planning is, what can we put on the back burner? What do we do that is absolutely critical? And how do we get volunteer help to get us out where we need to be for containment measures as well as immunizations? Our predominant is the investigation and surveillance. Lots and lots and lots of guidance for schools. I want to commend the schools in our community for working so well with all of our partners over the last 8 months. They were very well prepared for knowing how to screen children, ask them to go home, have parents take them home, or ask parents to keep students home. And fortunately for us, we never had to close the school. And I have a graphic to show you the burden of disease that went through our community over a 5-week period. So again, providing guidance to our partners on lab testing, treatment, risk communication, sending out information to media. Media is our partner. Getting the right information out at the right time to all the populations through all the different mechanisms. Our mass clinics, obviously we're moving into those, and that'll be taking much of our time as our weeks roll out. It's been wonderful, again, living and working in this jurisdiction. The response from constituents in this jurisdiction has been phenomenal. Parish nurses, first to the plate, we want to help. Clinics put the All Points Bulletin out to their employees saying, when public health has mass clinics, they're going to need more injectors. They're going to need more medical screeners. If you're interested in volunteering, let them know. And we've had a significant response from hospital and clinic nurses, in addition to non-clinical people that'll help us with moving the traffic through and running the what we need to have done in our mass clinics. Student nurses. Because we have a national health emergency, public health emergency, we are covered differently liability-wise and have the authority to use non-employed nurses, but nurses holding license, given adequate training. So that helps us build our capacity for covering the county.
There was a shipment that came in at Duluth Clinic, and then the guy left the truck open and somebody swiped the truck, and then they had to destroy it. Do you know anything about that? Or I just wonder if there's any security on that kind of stuff.
Oh, security. Thank goodness for law enforcement. I see that.
A truck of vaccine. It was loaded with
Okay.
vaccine that came in.
I haven't heard that, but I did hear that there was at least 1,500 vials or 1,500 doses in Fargo, North Dakota, that froze in transport to the intended clinic.
I called Duluth Clinic here in Superior, asked them when they thought they might be holding shots or having shots, and that's what the lady that answered the phone, that's what she told me.
That the vaccine was stolen?
And she didn't know if it was coming to Superior or Duluth.
Oh,
But,
and I would hear that, and I haven't heard
said they had
that.
to destroy what was in the vehicle.
Yeah, you have to keep, we call it cold chain for transporting vaccine. But speaking about security, that is a very significant element in planning for mass clinics. We worked with the Sheriff's Office and also with SPD to pull together security plans for the big one. When we have to immunize the entire population that wants to be immunized within 72 hours. And so we have a site, everything is all mapped out, and we have quite an intense security plan that includes, and I kid you not, sharpshooters for the roof because of civil unrest, vaccine theft. And apparently in Edina and also out in Fargo, when they had mass clinics not too many days ago, they had sharpshooters on the roof protecting the vaccine because it is so scarce. I talked to the sheriff and also to Chuck Lejessen. I don't think we're going to go that far, but we are going to have the support of law enforcement for traffic as needed.
Yep.
Yes?
I heard recently on public radio, I think, and I guess it is a good question, that apparently there's a lot of vaccine available, but from other countries, from India, from China, and things like that, and for some reason we're not allowing that vaccine into this country, which could help alleviate the shortage we have.
And the country does have those hoops that you have to jump through before you can use any drug through the FDA. I have heard that there are many different manufacturers around the world using different processes for manufacturing, thus getting a volume of vaccine quicker than the process we're using in the U.S. I believe there's even vaccine out on the black market right now. One of my colleagues, a health officer in another county, said she actually went on the web looking for some because she was so frustrated that it wasn't coming quick enough to the local jurisdiction. The community containment, again, for those of you, yes?
Is there kind of a paranoia in the population about like a necessity or urge to everybody get the shots on that? Before I got sugar diabetes, I never even worried about it. I just figured I'd get the flu. I got it. They always said you were better off getting it than taking the shot, or somebody built up resistance, or that's what it would be on the news meetings. So.
Yeah. His question was is there a growing sense of paranoia? I will say the longer we wait, I think we're finding more interest in people who want to have the vaccine, but we still have a significant percentage of the population that just they're weary and they don't necessarily feel comfortable getting vaccinated. When we did EMS, when we did those clinics, I found it fascinating in talking with the EMS workers. Have you had your seasonal shot this year? Oh no, I've never had a seasonal shot. I don't believe in them. But yet, they're coming for H1N1. So that might feed into somewhat of your question. Are people becoming more and more concerned? I got to get it because it is so scarce.
Things on TV where they're kind of suggesting that they're showing long lines of people waiting. Some of them are getting it, some aren't.
We'll see Thursday night. We'll see what we have here. What you have in front of you is a graphic of our school districts. And I was starting to say earlier that for 3 years we've had a number of schools reporting on a weekly, 3 times a week basis to us absenteeism as it relates to illness. And for public health, that's really great because we can get in early on when there's something starting to happen in a school. Or we can let Poplar know, or Maple School District know, that we've got some issues in the Superior School District, so they can start looking for symptoms, putting prevention in place, good hand washing, etc. What you see in this graphic, and it's a nice little bell curve, let's see, which one is that? This is number of students. And, of course, Superior School District does have many more students than Maple and significantly more than Cathedral. So the number graphic isn't as significant as the percentage of school population. And that's the one I like to refer to. When you look at this graphic and you see the horizontal lines of percentage 5, 10, 15, for 3 years we studied absentee rates in the schools to know what would be the norm. And we chose a 5% norm. We call it a threshold. So anything beyond the 5% threshold is unusual for this time of the year. So you could see that around the 9th of October, we started seeing activity. And then as we got into October 19th, a lot more activity. And again, remember, this is percentage. The first school we got a call from was middle school. Lots of kids, one whole wing, had been bused back and forth for a week to a nature center. And it seemed like those kids ended up having symptoms within a day or two. And it went through the wing, but not through the whole school. Then all of a sudden we get a call from Cathedral saying, geez, you know, we've got certain age kids that are all showing up with these symptoms. Well, guess what? They rode buses for an entire week to a nature center, back and forth, back and forth. So we knew that there was a tie there, some epidemiological tie to that. But after a while, studies really don't make any difference because this has become so widespread in the county. And as we started getting into the first part of November, our curve was getting far better and our percentage of absenteeism was at or below our threshold.
So you consider this the first wave we were talking about?
Yep, second wave. The first wave was in spring. Very small numbers, not a lot of exposure, and little kids. Yes. Well, our hope is that the actual virility of the virus isn't going to change. It hasn't changed from the first to second wave. It's just become more widespread. One thing about pandemics you need to understand, they go for 3 years, 2 to 3 years. It's not 3 to 4 months like seasonal influenza. So in that span of time, many people will be exposed, they'll develop immunities, but that virus, remember, influenza A is a stinker. It keeps changing. So our labs are watching that very closely, and like I said earlier, I'm hearing from our public health division that we're preparing for dealing with H1N1, an increase again, a peak, a spike, probably around the same time as we see seasonal influenza. Then we really will see more significant illness and most likely numbers of deaths.
Okay, that was a good question, by the way, but what's the defining characteristic of a pandemic? Like what determines it? Because pandemic is a fearful thing to hear.
Pandemic is when it's a certain percentage of the entire world. We start off endemic. We have endemic diseases that happen in our county. We'll have norovirus could be endemic for our county and not counties south or east or west of us. Pandemic it's so widespread. I don't recall the number of countries that actually became where the influenza was showing up before the WHO, the World Health Organization, declared it a worldwide pandemic. The pandemic is grossly widespread. Endemic is pretty contained. I think the more fear in that word is pandemic is generally used with viruses that are novel to our country. We have no experience with them. So again, we don't know what we don't know. And again, the CDC recommendations of covering cough, washing hands, getting plenty of sleep. Our governmental environments here, our mayor and the county board chair, along with county administrator, made a very strong impact on enhancing infection control in our work environment during the first wave. We had tremendous support within the governmental buildings and employee compliance. And I actually do feel that that's going to help us in seasonal influenza because we're washing our hands more, having the hand sanitizers available. Now, if we were back in 1918, we'd probably be telling Ed to gargle, when he had a sore throat. But that was the extent of understanding influenza in years gone by, and we know so much more now. So we can do a lot more to avoid influenza other than just gargling daily. And last but not least, people are saying, what are you public health people doing anyway? Well, I will tell you that we are eat, sleeping, and drinking this. And to show you the proof, we did actually have a cherry pie made by one of our staff members who was very well obsessed with H1N1. Yeah, I have one with his hands on there too, but I didn't want to show that because, the hygiene. I do have a handout for you on the targeted groups when the open clinics are going to be on the 19th and 23rd, and also on Mondays and Fridays. Monday morning, Friday afternoons, we're going to get that out to the media. We will be having vaccine available for people who meet the targeted group and can't get out to the mass clinics. So I'm going to pass this around for you. Any other questions?
Deb, I want to thank you for coming tonight and presenting this. Very informative. Is there any other questions from anybody out in the audience, sir?
Thank you so much, and for all of your questions. They were great.
Good. If there is nothing else, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Meeting adjourned.